The story of the 1942 wheat penny begins in a remarkable moment in American history when the world was facing enormous change. In the early 1940s, the United States was entering the difficult years of the Second World War. Industry, technology, and the economy were shifting rapidly to support the war effort. Yet even in such a dramatic period, small coins like the wheat penny continued to circulate quietly in everyday life, passing through markets, train stations, and small shops across the country. The humble penny from 1942 may look simple, but it carries with it a powerful connection to one of the most important eras in modern history. The wheat penny itself is part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, which began in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. This coin was historically significant because it became the first circulating United States coin to feature the portrait of a real person rather than the symbolic figure. The design of the coin was created by artist Victor David Brenner, whose artistic vision helped create one of the most recognizable coins in American history. On the front of the coin appears the calm and thoughtful portrait of Lincoln facing to the right. Above his head are the famous words, "In God We Trust," while the word liberty appears beside the portrait. The year 1942 is stamped clearly on the front of the coin, marking the moment in history when it was produced. The design has remained one of the most beloved coin portraits ever created in the United States. The reverse side of the coin gives the wheat penny its famous nickname. Two tall wheat stalks frame the words 1 cent and United States of America. At the top of the design appears the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many one. This simple agricultural imagery symbolized the strength and prosperity of the nation's farmland during the early 20th century. The 1942 wheat penny, without a mint mark, was produced at the historic Philadelphia Mint. During that era, coins made in Philadelphia did not include a mint mark, so the absence of a letter beneath the date indicates that the coin came from that facility. In that single year, the Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 657,796,000 pennies, making it the largest mintage of the 1942 wheat cent varieties. LincolnWheatPenny.com +1. Because such an enormous number of coins were produced, the 1942 penny quickly became part of everyday life across the United States. People used these coins in grocery stores, public transportation, and vending machines. For millions of Americans, the wheat penny was simply a small coin used for daily purchases. The coin itself was made from an alloy that was mostly copper. Its composition was approximately 95% copper, with small amounts of tin and zinc, giving the coin its familiar reddish color. This copper content made the coin durable and visually distinctive compared with later pennies. LincolnWheatPenny.com. Physically, the 1942 wheat penny measures about 19 millimeters in diameter and weighs around 3.11 grams. Its edge is smooth rather than ridged, a feature common to United States cents. These specifications remained standard for the Lincoln cent series for many decades. LincolnWheatPenny.com. Although millions of these coins circulated widely, collectors today are fascinated by their historical context. The year 1942 marked the final full year before the United States changed the penny's metal composition due to wartime needs. In 1943, copper became a critical material for military equipment, so the government switched to steel pennies coated with zinc. Because of this transition, the copper wheat pennies of 1942 represent the end of an important chapter in American coin production. They are among the last copper pennies produced before the famous steel cents of 1943. In terms of value, most 1942 wheat pennies are quite common because of their enormous production numbers. A typical circulated example might only be worth between a few cents and a small premium above face value. CoinValueLookup.com. However, the world of coin collecting is full of surprises. The condition of a coin plays a major role in determining its value. Coins that have been heavily circulated often show wear on Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks on the reverse. These coins tend to be less valuable. On the other hand, coins that have survived in uncirculated condition are far more desirable. Such coins still display the bright copper color known as red by collectors. The red color indicates that the coin has not oxidized significantly over time. Professional grading companies evaluate coins using a detailed numerical scale. Coins graded at extremely high levels, such as mint state 67 or mint state 68, are extremely rare for coins that are more than 80 years old. In fact, one remarkable 1942 penny graded MS 68 red sold for around $3,960 at auction, demonstrating how condition can dramatically influence value. Coin No Plus One. Collectors also search for unusual minting errors that occurred during production. Occasionally, a coin might show doubling in the letters, off-center strikes, or other unusual features. These rare mistakes can significantly increase a coin's value. Stories about valuable coins often spread quickly among collectors and hobbyists. The idea that an ordinary penny could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars inspires many people to search through their spare change and family coin collections. The excitement of coin collecting is not only about financial value. It is also about the connection to history. Each coin carries a story from the time it was created. The 1942 wheat penny represents a moment when the United States was preparing for global conflict while still maintaining the rhythms of everyday life. When someone holds a 1942 penny today, they are touching a small piece of history that once traveled through countless hands during one of the most dramatic decades of the 20th century. Although most examples will never be worth tens of thousands of dollars, exceptional coins with rare errors or extraordinary preservation can still command impressive prices among collectors. And somewhere, perhaps inside an old jar of coins or hidden in a forgotten collection, a bright red 1942 wheat penny might still be waiting to be discovered, quietly carrying its copper shine, its historical story, and the timeless fascination of America's coinage heritage. Next up, the story of the 1944 wheat penny begins during one of the most dramatic periods in American history. In the early 1940s, the United States was deeply involved in World War II, and the entire nation was mobilizing its industries, resources, and people for the war effort. Even the smallest everyday objects, including coins, were influenced by the needs of the time. The humble 1-cent coin produced in 1944 might appear ordinary at first glance, yet behind its copper surface lies a fascinating story of wartime innovation, national struggle, and the enduring appeal of rare collectibles. Today, collectors still search for these coins, hoping that one small penny could turn out to be a hidden treasure worth thousands of dollars. The Lincoln Wheat Penny series itself began decades earlier in 1909 to honor the 100th birthday of the beloved American President Abraham Lincoln. Before that year, American coins rarely displayed portraits of real historical figures. The introduction of Lincoln's face on the penny marked a historic change in American coinage. The coin quickly became one of the most recognizable pieces of money ever produced in the United States, and it remained in circulation with the wheat ear design until 1958. The artistic design of the coin was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, who carefully crafted Lincoln's portrait for the front of the coin. His design showed Lincoln facing to the right with a calm and thoughtful expression. Above the portrait are the famous words, "In God We Trust," while the word "Liberty" appears on the left side. The date 1944 appears clearly beneath Lincoln's image, marking the moment when that specific coin was produced. The reverse side of the wheat penny features the famous wheat ears that gave the coin its nickname. Two tall wheat stalks curve upward on each side of the coin, framing the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above these words is the Latin phrase E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. This simple but powerful design symbolized American agriculture, unity, and prosperity during the early 20th century. The 1944 wheat penny, with no mint mark, was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. At that time, coins produced in Philadelphia typically did not include a mint mark. Because of this tradition, the absence of a small letter beneath the date indicates that the coin came from that historic mint facility. In 1944, the Philadelphia Mint produced an astonishing over 1.4 billion pennies, making it one of the largest penny productions of the entire wheat cent series. These pennies were made primarily from copper. The metal composition consisted of about 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, giving the coin its classic reddish color and durability. The coin weighed approximately 3.11 grams and measured about 19 millimeters in diameter, dimensions that were standard for Lincoln cents for many decades. The reason copper returned in 1944 is directly connected to wartime needs. In 1943, the U.S. Mint had temporarily stopped using copper for pennies because the metal was required for ammunition and military equipment. Instead, pennies that year were made from zinc-coated steel. However, once enough materials became available again, the mint switched back to copper in 1944. Some of that copper even came from recycled wartime shell casings, giving the coin a remarkable historical connection to the battlefield. For most Americans living during the 1940s, the 1944 penny was simply everyday money. These coins passed from hand to hand in grocery stores, railway stations, movie theaters, and small family businesses. Millions of people used them without ever imagining that decades later collectors would examine them closely under magnifying glasses, searching for rare varieties. Because so many coins were produced that year, the majority of 1944 pennies remain very common. In typical circulated condition, they may only be worth a few cents to $1, depending on where. Many collectors keep them simply for historical interest, rather than high financial value. However, coin collecting is full of surprises, and sometimes an ordinary coin can become extremely valuable. The condition of a coin is one of the most important factors in determining its price. Coins that have never circulated and still display bright red copper color, known among collectors as red coins, can be worth significantly more than worn examples. High-grade, uncirculated 1944 wheat pennies can sometimes sell for dozens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on their preservation. The sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the clarity of the lettering, and the bright luster of the copper surface all influence the final price in the collector's market. Even more exciting are the rare minting errors that occasionally occurred during production. Errors can happen when coin dies strike improperly or when the wrong metal blanks are used. These mistakes transform ordinary coins into highly sought-after collectibles. One of the most famous examples is the 1944 steel penny error. A few pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel blanks from 1943 instead of copper blanks. These rare coins appear silver gray instead of copper and can stick to a magnet. Only a very small number exist, making them extremely valuable to collector. When one of these rare steel pennies appears at auction, the price can be astonishing. Some verified examples have sold for $30,000 to more than $100,000, depending on condition, and in exceptional cases, even higher amounts. These extraordinary sales fuel the dream that a tiny coin might change someone's fortune overnight. Another reason collectors love the 1944 penny is its connection to the dramatic wartime economy. The coin represents a moment when the United States was transitioning from steel pennies back to copper coinage while the world was still at war. Holding one of these pennies today is like holding a miniature time capsule from the 1940s. Many collectors also search for other varieties, such as doubled letters, over-mint marks, or unusual striking patterns. While these are less famous than the steel error, they can still bring significant premiums in the collector's market if verified by professional grading services. Despite the enormous number originally minted, the passage of time has gradually reduced the number of high-quality examples still available. Many coins were lost, melted, or heavily worn through decades of circulation. As a result, well-preserved coins continue to attract attention from collectors worldwide. The excitement of coin collecting often begins with simple curiosity. Someone might find an old penny in a jar, an inherited collection, or even loose change. The discovery of the wheat ear design immediately signals that the coin comes from an earlier era of American history. For collectors, every wheat penny tells a story. The 1944 coin carries the memory of wartime factories, rationed bookstore gardens, and a nation determined to overcome global conflict. It represents a small yet powerful artifact of American resilience and ingenuity. While most 1944 pennies will never be worth tens of thousands of dollars, the rare varieties remind collectors that extraordinary treasures can sometimes hide in ordinary places. A tiny copper coin worth just 1 cent could, under the right circumstances, become a collectible worth thousands. That possibility is what keeps coin collectors searching through rolls of pennies, flea markets, and old family collections. The dream that a forgotten coin could hold hidden value continues to inspire hobbyists around the world. Next up, the story of the 1952 wheat penny, with no mint mark, begins in a fascinating chapter of American history when the United States was experiencing rapid economic growth after World War II. Factories that once produced wartime equipment had shifted toward consumer goods. New suburbs were expanding across the country, and millions of Americans were rebuilding their lives in a period of optimism and prosperity. In the middle of this era, a small copper coin quietly circulated through stores, cafes, and gas stations. The 1952 Lincoln wheat penny. Although it carried only a 1-cent face value, decades later collectors would look at this coin with curiosity and excitement, wondering whether a simple penny from the past might hold hidden value worth thousands of dollars. The Lincoln wheat penny series itself began long before 1952. In 1909, the United States Mint introduced a new cent design to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln, one of the most respected presidents in American history. This was the first circulating U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure rather than an allegorical symbol. The decision marked a turning point in American coin design and helped create one of the most recognizable coins ever produced. The artistic design of the coin was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, whose work captured the quiet dignity of Lincoln's face. On the front of the coin, Lincoln's profile looks to the right with a thoughtful expression. Above his head appear the words, "In God We Trust," while the word "Liberty" sits beside the portrait. The year 1952 appears beneath Lincoln's image, marking the moment when that coin was minted and released into circulation. The reverse side of the coin is equally iconic. Two tall wheat stalks curve upward along the edges of the coin, giving the series its famous nickname, the wheat penny. Between the wheat stalks are the words 1 cent and United States of America. Above them appears the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many one. The wheat design symbolized the agricultural strength and unity of the United States during the early 20th century. The specific coin known as the 1952 wheat penny, with no mint mark, was produced at the historic Philadelphia Mint. During most of the 20th century, coins struck in Philadelphia typically did not carry a mint mark, so the absence of a letter beneath the date identifies the coin's origin. In 1952, the Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 186,775,000 pennies, adding a massive number of coins to circulation across the country. These coins were made primarily from copper. The metal composition was about 95% copper, combined with small amounts of tin and zinc, giving the coin its classic reddish color and strong durability. For many decades, this copper alloy remained a standard material used to produce United States pennies. Physically, the 1952 wheat penny measures about 19 millimeters in diameter and weighs around 3.11 grams. These measurements were consistent across most Lincoln cents produced between 1909 and the early 1960s. The edge of the coin is smooth rather than ridged, a design choice that distinguished pennies from higher-value coins, such as quarters or dimes. During the early 1950s, these pennies were everywhere. Children used them to buy candy at neighborhood stores, adults used them in vending machines, and businesses used them for small transactions. At the time, a penny still had noticeable purchasing power compared with today's economy. Because so many coins were produced in 1952, the majority of surviving examples are considered common by coin collectors. Most circulated coins have visible wear, meaning Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks on the reverse appear smoother or flattened from years of use. In typical circulated condition, a 1952 wheat penny may only be worth a few cents above its face value. Many examples sell for around 3 to 10 cents, simply because collectors enjoy adding them to wheat penny collections. However, the world of coin collecting is full of surprises. Condition plays a huge role in determining the value of any coin. Coins that have never circulated and still display bright copper color are called red coins by collectors. These coins look almost as fresh as the day they were minted. When a coin survives in extremely high condition, such as mint state 67 or higher, it becomes dramatically rarer. A nearly perfect 1952 wheat penny graded MS-67 red once sold for about $9,775, showing how dramatically the value can rise when a coin is preserved in exceptional condition. Collectors also search carefully for minting errors. Sometimes the dies used to strike coins shift slightly or strike the metal incorrectly, creating unusual features. These errors may include doubled letters, off-center strikes, or raised cracks known as die breaks. Although most 1952 pennies are common, certain error varieties can attract strong interest from collectors. A dramatic mint error or rare variety can push a coin's value far beyond normal prices. This is why coin enthusiasts always recommend checking old coins carefully before spending them. A simple penny might appear ordinary, but under magnification, it could reveal unusual features that increase its collectible value. Another fascinating aspect of the 1952 penny is the era in which it circulated. America in the early 1950s was experiencing technological growth, the rise of television, and the early stages of the Cold War. The coins that people used daily quietly witnessed these moments of history. Many of these pennies traveled across the country in cash registers, lunch counters, and train stations. Some ended up in jars and collections, where they remained untouched for decades. Today, when collectors examine a 1952 wheat penny, they're not just looking at a piece of copper. They are looking at a tiny historical artifact that passed through the hands of people living in a very different world. Although most examples will never reach values like $35,000, the dream of discovering a rare variety keeps collectors searching through rolls of pennies and inherited coin collections. That excitement is one of the reasons the Lincoln Wheat penny remains one of the most beloved coins among collectors worldwide. Its design is simple, its history is rich, and its connection to American culture remains strong. And somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten coin jar, an old wallet, or a family collection, a 1952 wheat penny might still be waiting quietly. It may look like a small piece of copper, but its story stretches across decades of American history, reminding collectors that even the smallest coin can carry a surprisingly big story. Next up,